Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Chagigah, and we are on Daf Zayin, Amud Bet, 7b. The limud of Amud Yomi for this week has been anonymously sponsored for Refuah Shlema of Chai Ben Serena, for Refuah Shlema in the upcoming surgery, and has been also anonymously sponsored for the entire Chodesh Adar for Refuat V'Yeshuot for the entire Bnei Chabura. So we learned in the Mishnah, Olot ba'moed ba'ot min ha'chulin. Get the board. We learned in the Mishnah that Olot, the Korban Olas in Moed, which means Chol HaMoed ba'ot min ha'chulin, have to be brought from not Maaser, but has to be brought from your own private money. You can't use your tithes, you cannot use your maserot. Now, we spoke about the fact that the initial understanding of the Gemara has been that when we talk about olot, we're talking about olat hariyah. And the indication of saying in the Mishnah that the korban olah on Chol HaMoed has to be from Chulin, would be that only on Chol HaMoed it has to be from Chulin, but on Yom Tov, it could be from Maaser, which makes absolutely no sense. So the Gemara challenged this idea. The Gemara challenged this idea, and Gemara asks, Ela olot b'moed hu debaot min ha'chulin habiyom tov min ha'maser, that the korban olah could be brought from your masrot on Yom Tov. Gemara says no. What it means, because we know already the concept that anything that is obligatory, it's an obligation that you have to bring, it has to be from Chulin. So therefore, it doesn't mean that on Yom Tov you could be bringing your korban olah from your masrot, but rather the Gemara suggests that maybe, just maybe, you can't bring even korban olah on Yom Tov, period. You only could bring korban olah on Chol HaMoed. And Gemara says, no, it can't be. Because you know who holds that? Who is the shita that holds that korban olah cannot be brought on Yom Tov? It's Bet Shammai. Bet Hillel hold you could bring your korban olah of Riyah on Yom Tov. And Bet Shammai b'makom Bet Hillel enah Mishnah. When you have Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai, we disregard completely the shita of Bet Shammai. So hence the Gemara says we're going to do a reconstructive surgery to the Mishnah, and we're going to rewrite basically the language of the Mishnah the way it has to be written. So let's do it together. Says the Gemara. The line, this is the line that starts with Alehen. Chasure mechsera in the middle of the Amud. V'haki katani. This is how the Mishnah should be really written. Olot nedarim v'nedavot b'moed ba'ot, b'yom tov enan ba'ot. Regular korbanot that you want to bring. That's not obligation. You decided that you want to bring a korban olah to Beit HaMikdash. You made a neder to bring a korban. You made a nedava to bring a korban. Now you go to Beit HaMikdash, is Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach. You say, well, once I'm here already in the Rabbi, let me just bring them all. Can you do that? Absolutely not. You cannot shecht. It's isur for private korbanot. You cannot just bring them on Yom Tov. So therefore, the first line of the Mishnah, when it says olot b'moed ba'ot, those words, the three first words of the Mishnah is talking about a regular korban olah, a regular korban nedava, a regular neder. Those you can only bring on Chol HaMoed, cannot be brought on Yom Tov. You're doing Hilul Yom Tov. It's Chilul Shabbat. You can't do that. Now, the next word is referring to Olat Re'iyah. Ve'olat Re'iyah ba'a afilu b'yom tov. But Olat Re'iyah, which is your obligation to be bringing it, that of course we paskin like Bet Hillel. And Bet Hillel holds Olat Re'iyah you can bring on Yom Tov, of course. But Uchshehi ba'a, when you do bring it, Eina ba'a ela mina chulin, has to be brought from your private money. It can't be used with Maser. So therefore, let's look back at the first four words of the Mishnah. Olot ba'moed ba'ot, those three words means that you could only bring Korban Olah in Moed, which is Chol HaMoed. You can't bring your private Korban Olah on Yom Tov. But then when the Mishnah says, Ba'ot min hachulin, is referring to Korban Olat HaRe'iyah. Already we switched gears, and when you read the Mishnah, you don't see that because the sentence reads together, but that's how we are Chasurim Machzera V'Achikot, and it's written cryptically, and this is how it should be read. Olot ba'moed ba'ot, it's referring to a regular Korban Olah. Min hachulin is referring to on Yom Tov now, and what Korban? Olat Re'iyah. So when you do bring Korban Olat Re'iyah, it has to be brought from Chulin. Now, we mentioned already before, right, that we have. You don't have to bring it in. This is fine. We mentioned before, just a little bit. Put this here. We mentioned before that you have three korbanot when you have shalosh regalim. When you come up, you have korban re'iyah, and you have shalmei Chagigah, and you have shalmei simcha, right? Now we're going to discuss each one of them and which one could be from what. So far we just mentioned this one, right? That korban re'iyah could come on Yom Tov, of course, and when it comes, it has to come from Chulin, personal money. Now, what happens with Shalmei Chagigah? We're going to jump over that for a moment because we're going to come back to it. Look further in the Gemara, Shalmei Simcha ba'in af mina maaser, and Shalmei Simcha, your last korban shlamim, which is only to fulfill the mitzvah of Vesamachta bechagecha, that comes from Maaser. It could even come from Maaser. That's what it means, right? It could even come from Maaser, Vechagigat Yom Tov, and Korban Shalmei Chagigah. It's machloket Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Korban Yom Tov Harishon Shel Pesach, the first day of Pesach, and again, we are going to discuss the Gemara at the bottom of the Amud. Is going to ask, why only first day of Pesach? Why does the Mishnah, what is he coming to teach me by saying first day of Pesach? Just say first day of Sukkot, right? Why can't he just say first day of Shavuot? Why does he have to be Pesach? We're going to get to that. Bet Shammai Omri Min HaChulin, this one is by itself a machloket. You have Bet Shammai, and you have Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai hold that this has to come from Chulin, and Bet Hillel hold that this could come from Maaser as well. So now you have the full picture of how you spend your money on the three korbanot that you have to bring on every Chag. Finally, we get into what we started with in the beginning of this sugya, that now that you know that you have to bring every one of the shalosh regalim, when you go, you have to bring korban re'iyah, which is olat re'iyah, and you have to bring shalmei chagigah and shalmei simcha. Everybody agrees that korban re'iyah has to be from chulin. You cannot spend your own, maaserot on it. It has to be from your private money. And shalmei simcha, everyone agrees that you could bring from your maaserot. And shalmei chagigah, which is also obligatory, But Hillel says you could bring from your maserot, but Shammai says no, it has to be from chulin, right? By the way, which one is more logical? This is your obligation to bring korban shalmei chagigah.
Because it's an obligation.
Take a look. I would have expected that everyone should say, well, it's our obligation. The first line of the Mishnah was, anything that's my obligation, I can't use my maserot. You can't double dip. So I would expect that everyone should agree that my shalmei chagigah, which I have to bring, it's not an optional thing, should be brought from chulin. So what's happening with Hillel? But Shammai makes much more sense. The Gemara is going to ask that on the top of the Amud. We're going to get to it in just a moment. So says the Gemara, Tanya Lami Hachi, this is just a repetition of what we just learned right now, because we find a Braita that says exactly what we just said. It's beautiful to have a Braita that says exactly what he said. We reconstructed the reading of the Mishnah, and there's a Braita that says exactly that. Says the Gemara, Olot nedarim v'nedavot b'moed ba'ot b'yom tov enam ba'ot. Regular olot, regular nedarim nedavot, you could bring on Chol HaMoed, but you cannot bring on Yom Tov. Gavaldik. Ve'olat re'iyah, but korban olat re'iyah, that is an obligation to be bringing, that, says the Gemara, afilu b'yom tov. You could even bring it on Yom Tov itself. And when you do bring it, you have to use your own private money to be bringing it. You cannot use maser. V'shalmei simcha ba'in af min ha'maser. Korban shalmei simcha you could bring even from your maserot. V'chagigah yom tov harishon shel Pesach v'et Shammai omrim min ha'chulin v'et Hillel omrim min ha'maser. And korban shalmei chagigah, it's machloket Bet Shammai, and Bet Hillel Bet Shammai hold you have to bring it from chulin, and Bet Hillel says you could even use your maser. Givaldi. Exactly verbatim to what we said. Now, the Gemara says, before we discuss this, I want to know, what is this business about Korban Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach? Why not Sukkot? Why not Shavuot? Why not the second day of Pesach? Why Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach? Amar Rav Ashi, the Mai Shira Chagigat Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach. Amar Rav Ashi, Hakamash Malan Chagigat Chamisha Asar, in Chagigat Arba Asar Lo. This that I said, that by Korban Shalmei Chagigah, you have to be bringing from Chulin, right? Remember this? We just mentioned the Shalmei Chagigah, the Bet Shammai hold that you have to be bringing it from Chulin. That's only for the 15th of Nisan, the first day of Pesach, when you're bringing a Korban Shalmei Chagigah. But if you're bringing it day prior to Pesach, the 14th of Nisan, then you could use your maserot as well, even according to Bet Shammai. Now, you will ask me, what are you doing bringing a Korban Shalmei Chagigah on 14th of Nisan? It's not Yom Tov. It's Erev Yom Tov. The answer is the following. On Erev Yom Tov of Pesach, what Korban does everyone have to bring? Korban Pesach, right? Korban Pesach. Sela bet avot, sela bayit. How do you do it? Sela bet avot, sela bayit. People will count up on a Korban. So me, you, and you, we're bringing a Korban Pesach together. Chaburot, groups and groups. You have to be counting on the groups of Korban Pesach from prior. So imagine if one mishpacha is a Baruch Hashem, a very blessed mishpacha, they have 50 people in one group. So one poor lamb, how big can the lamb be already? And everyone has to be eating this. So what do? If you don't have enough meat to have Korban Pesach al Hasova, because Korban Pesach has to be eaten, it's not really Korban Pesach, all the Kodshim are like this. It has to be eaten like a achilav melachim, like a eating of kingly eating, which is you eat it when you're already almost full. You eat it ala sova. So, in other words, well, if this is my only meat for the night, I'm going to be starving. It's not going to be ala sova. It's not enough. Like nowadays that you have afikomen and people sometimes you have a little piece. Everyone gets like a crumb of afikomen, right? It has to be ala sova. If that's my only matzah, right? For Afikomen, it can't be. For Pesach, it's the same thing. If it's the only meat and you have 50 people, 100 people, of course, you can't just give a kazayit to everyone. It has to be something that makes talasova. So what you would bring is, you compensate for that with shalmei chagigah. You will bring other korbanot. It's okay, you guys eat all this. This is the steak for tonight. And then Korban Pesach would be the last piece that you would eat, right? So that korban that you have to bring could be brought from Maser. Chagigah of Arba Asar of the 14th could be brought from Maser because it's not an obligation. It's only if you have no other, if you have no other food, basically, and Korban Pesach is not going to be enough, then you'll eat this to compensate and to make sure that Korban Pesach is going to be eaten ala sova. But it's not an obligation. Hence, it's not an obligation. You could bring it from your maserot. So says the Gemara, Alma kasava, the first line, Chagigat Arba Asar lav doraita. You see from here that the Korban Chagigah of Arba Asar is not doraita. It's not a biblical concept because, again, as we mentioned, you don't have to bring it. If you have a large group and you are not going to be full with eating the Korban Pesach, then you bring an optional Korban on the side called Korban Chagigah of Arba Asar. Amar more. Now the question that we brought. The Gemara looks back and says, wait a second. How in the world does Bet Hillel hold that you're allowed to bring Korban Shalmei Chagigah from your Masrot? It's an obligation. We said in the first line of the Mishnah over here in the Gemara that Kol v'chol davar shebechova eno ba'ela min achulin. And this is a davar shebechova. So how does that work exactly? Says the Gemara. Amar more. Bet Hillel omrim min ha'maser. Amai. Davar shebechovau. This is an obligatory thing. It's not an optional. So therefore, it should be only from chulin. V'chol davar shebechova eno ba'ela min achulin. So says the Gemara, Amar Ula. Ula said, Betofel. We're talking about Betofel. What's Betofel? Tofel comes from the language of Tafel. Tafel means secondary. That means it's not that you're bringing all of the Korban Shalmei Chagigah from Maser. You're bringing part of it from Maser. Bet Shammai hold all of it has to be from Chulin. Bet Hillel says no, part of it could be from Maser. Now, what does part of it mean exactly? I could understand it with the Jewish brain in two different ways, right? And whenever you could understand it in two different ways, you'll definitely have a machloket there, right? As we're going to see in the Gemara. It could be understood either that I bring my first Korban Shalmei Chagigah from Chulin, and any subsequent behemah that I bring as Shalmei Chagigah, it could be from Maser. That's one way of understanding. The other way of understanding is that on every one of them, I have to have some chulin mixed over there. But I could have a tafel once I have some money, private money for my own. I could mix it and add to it with my maser. And that's what tofel means. I have tafel of my masrot in my principal, which is my own money. That's what tofel means. Every one of them, I have to have a little bit of my own money, but then I could have additional money from maser, hyping up the quality of the korban. So says the Gemara, that's exactly the machloket between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan, the first generation of Amoraim. Says the Gemara, Chizkiah Amar, Toflin behema lebehema and toflin ma'ot lema'ot. You could only bring Toflin behema lebehema. You could bring a behema which is from Chulin, and once you bring that, you could have tafel, you could have sidekicks of other behemoth that you bring subsequent to the first Shalmei Chagigah, which could be from Maser. You could be 100% from Maser. But you have to have a behemah in the beginning that's 100% from Chulin. So Toflim behemah lebehemah, you bring another animal a subsequent korban shalmei chagigah, that you could bring it from your maserot. But you can never put some money from chulin, some money from maserot, mix them together, and go to the store and pay for one behema and bring it as shalmei chagigah. That you cannot do. Every end must be 100%. You bring your first korban, it has to be chulin. Subsequent korban, you could bring fully from maser. That's how Chizkiah understood toflin. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan disagrees. Now, by the way, each one of them is mutually exclusive. The Gemara says, Chizkiah, who holds toflin be'ema le'be'ema, holds you can't. Ve'en toflin ma'ot le'ma'ot. You cannot mix monies together, different money of maser and money of chulin, and go buy one be'ema. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, toflin ma'ot le'ma'ot, ve'en toflin be'ema le'be'ema. Exactly the opposite. You could mix the money, but you cannot bring a korban that's fully from maser. According to Rabbi Yochanan, every subsequent korban should also have a little bit of chulin mixed with it. You can never bring a korban that's fully bought from maser. You always have to have chulin mixed with it. But once you mix it, you could bring a mixed korban shalmei chagigah. Says the Gemara, Tanya Kivateh de Chizkiah, Tanya Kivateh de Rabbi Yochanan. We have a braita supporting Chizkiah. We have another braita supporting Rabbi Yochanan. What are they? Tanya Kivateh de Rabbi Yochanan. The braita that supports Rabbi Yochanan is from the pasuk that says, "Ve'asita chag shavuot la'Hashem Elokecha." Make chag shavuot, says the pasuk in Devarim Tet Zayin. Misat nidvat yadecha asher titen kasher yivarechecha Hashem Elokecha. This word misat nidvat yadecha, which we're going to touch, we're going to explain this word misat. Everything is about this. And then at the end of the pasuk says, kasher yivarechecha Hashem Elokecha. Like Hashem is going to bless you. So says the Gemara, misat melamed she'adam mevi chovato min hachulin. The Gemara understands the word misat is a reference to chulin, to your own private money. The Gemara is going to come back to this and say, how in the world do you know that misat is the reference to your private money? We're going to get there. But however the Gemara gets there, the Gemara understands the word misat means chulin. That's my private money. So says the Gemara, Misat melamed she'adam mevi chovato min hachulin. You could bring your obligation of shalmei chagigah from your money, from chulin. Uminayin she'im ratza le'arev me'arev. And how do I know that if I want to mix some money of maaser, that I could now add to this and mix the money? Says the Gemara, Talmud lomar, kasher yivarechecha Hashem Elokecha. That kasher yivarechecha Hashem Elokecha at the end of pasuk is coming to say, from the blessing that Hashem has given you that you're bringing masrot from, you could add to that as well. Tanya, that's the braita that supports Rabbi Yochanan. So you see that the mixture, that how do I know that if you want to add to it, that you could literally mix the money and that would be allowed. That's the braita that says, minayin she'im ratza le'arev, that you could be me'arev. So you see clearly, like Rabbi Yochanan, that when we talk about tofel, is mixing the money of maser with the money of chulin and buying an animal. And that is allowed. Of course, that is against Chizkiah and its support for Rabbi Yochanan. So what's now the support for Chizkiah? Tanya Kivateh de Chizkiah, mitzat, the same pasuk. Misat melamed she'adam mevi chovato min hachulin. Misat means you have to bring chulin. The korban that you bring has to be from chulin. So Bet Shammai omrin, Yom Rishon min hachulin, mikan va'elach min ha'maser. Bet Shammai hold that the first day your korban has to be 100% from chulin, and from here and on the subsequent korban Chagigah that you bring, the shlamim that you bring, Bet Hillel omrim, achila rishona min achulin, mikan va'elach min ha'maser. Right? Bet Hillel say the first eating that you have is from chulin. From there on is going to be from maser. Right? Now we think that achila rishona means the first behema la'atzma v'yevena al shulchan rishon. Right? That's what we're thinking right now. U'sha'ar kol yemot Pesach, the rest of the days of Pesach, Adam yotze yedeh chovato b'maser behema. A person could be bringing his chova from maser behema. You could bring your maser behema, which means whenever you had a flock and you have animals that give birth every year, so the newborns you have to tithe. They will put all of the newborns in an enclosure, and they will come out one by one, and the asiri would be Lashem, right? They would mark it with a red dye on the animal as they're running out of the enclosure one by one from a narrow place, right? You say 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 10. Again, 1, 10. That's how you would tithe your animal. So it says the Gemara. You could even bring your maser bema, which you have to bring to Yisraeli, and bring maser bema. You could be yotze from maser bema. Yom Tov, my tamado. Why can't you on Yom Tov use maser bema? And it has to be from chulin. Amar Rabashi, Dil Ma'ati. The reason is a technical reason, because maybe you're going to come and separate your maser bema on Yom Tov. If we allow you to use the maser bema, you may actually come to give your tithes of maser bema on Yom Tov, and you can't do that. You cannot give maser bema on Yom Tov because of this red dye that they would mark it with. The way you did it, sakarta, is an isur d'oraita of Shabbat, painting, putting the dye on it. That would be asur. So says the Gemara, my mashma dehai misat lishna dechulin. How do I know that when we say misat, this pasuk in Dvarim, misat nidvat yadecha asher titen kasher yivarchecha Hashem elokecha. The misat means your private money chulin. How do I know that? Both according to Chizkiah and according to Rabbi Yochanan, the support that we have from a Braita was from this language, and we understood it as to mean your private money chulin, or your private money animal, if an animal that has been bought with private money of chulin. Says the Gemara, Dichtiv vayasem hamelech Achashverosh mas al haaretz. At the end of Megillah, it says that Achashverosh put mas. Mas means taxes, and taxes you're paying from your own money, right? You can't use other money that's not yours. It has to be your money that you pay taxes from. So therefore, you see that misat from language of mas is coming from language of your own private money. Now, in the Mishnah, we learned Yisraeli yotzin yedechovatan benedarim v'nedavot, that the Yidden, the regular Jews, could be yotze their obligation with nedarim v'nedavot, right? You want to bring korbanot, and you make a neder or a nedavah to bring a korban to Beit HaMikdash. When you finally make it to the Beit HaMikdash, you could use those korbanot for your shalmei simcha, right? You could use it for the korbanot that you are going to use as part of simchat haregel, as part of the happy occasion that you have celebrating for Yom Tov. So says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, we learned, V'samachta bechagecha lerabot kol minei smachot lesimcha. When it says V'samachta bechagecha, you should be happy. V'samachta bechagecha ata ubetecha or v'samachta b'chagecha v'hayita ach sameach. When he says samachta b'chagecha, is coming to add kol minei simcha, all types of simcha included. Now says the Gemara, Mikan amru chachamim, Yisrael yotzin yedei chovatan benedarim v'nedavot, u'b'maaser behema. That a regular Jew, when coming to Beit HaMikdash, doesn't have to be bringing a specific korban shalmei simcha, rather, but you could use other korbanot for simcha. V'samachta b'chagecha al rabot kol minei simcha. You could bring any korban that you're allowed to be eating, even though that this is a korban that you made a neder to bring, but now you have a meat of korbanot in Yerushalayim, and that gives you simcha gemaldik, right? That's no problem, because it's added from the samachta b'chagecha l'rabot kol minei simcha. So you could bring nedarim, nedavot, maaseh behema, and for kohanim also, a kohen doesn't have to bring his own shalmei simcha, but rather the kohen whose turn it is to be serving in the Beit HaMikdash, and hence he's getting the chataot, ashamot, he's bringing korban chatat, which he gets a part of, asham gets a part of, or a regular shlamim that he gets chazeh v'shok, right? Or korban bechor, ubebechor, ubechazeh v'shok. Any time that you have the meat of korbanot, even though that's not shalmei simcha, or in the case of kohanim, even though that's not shalmei simcha, it's not even your korban, it's just the portion you get as working in the Beit HaMikdash. Yeah, you could have them as your shalmei simcha. Can we suggest that any korban that you bring or you get part of in Beit HaMikdash should be part of shalmei simcha, even if it's ofot, which is birds, or menachot, which is the flower offering in the Beit HaMikdash? Talmud Omar says the Gemara, says the Torah, the samachta b'chagecha, it should be something that brings simcha. Mi shechagigah ba'a mehem. It has to be something that the samachta b'chagecha, the simcha is related to chag, to the word chag, and hence you see that chag, which means korban chagigah, a reference to korban chagigah, could be brought only from zvachim, from animals, not from ofot and not from menachot, and hence mish chagigah b'hamehem, only things that korban shalmei chagigah could be brought from them is what shalmei simcha would require, and hence the samachta b'chagecha, the simcha v'chag, has to also be from them. Yatzu elu, to exclude these, which means the meat of ofot and also the flour offering of menachot, she'en chagigah ba'amehen, that you cannot bring korban chagigah from them. Because by chagigah, how do we know by chagigah has to be that? Because it says chelev, right? By korban chagigah, it says you put the so chelev. Of course, you don't have in a flour offering, and you don't have it in bird as well. Birds don't have chelev. So the fat, the chelev is asur, right? So it says, because it says lo yalin chelev chagi ad boker, right? It says lo yalin chelev chagi, which means korban chagigah, the chelev. So you see that it has to be zvachim. Rav Ashi Amar, Rav Ashi says, Mi v'samachta nafka. It comes from the word v'samachta. When the pasuk says v'samachta b'chagecha ata ubetecha, or ata ubincha ubetecha, avtecha v'amatcha, v'agash. When it says v'samachta, it says you have to be happy. V'samachta b'chagecha, and therefore, says the Gemara, says Rav Ashi, Yatzu elu she'en bahem simcha. En simcha ela bebasar v'yayin, and basar means the meat, the flesh of zvachim, not ofot and not menachot. And Bezrat Hashem will continue the last piece of this Mishnah in the days to come.